Alright, so I'm just going to make this video. I'm not going to edit it yet just because I've been trying to get this video out for weeks and it hasn't really come out just because I've been waiting for editing. I'm trying to get more videos out like this, and I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on exactly what they're doing with their own personal study plans, what the program is, and all this. So first, to get this out of the way, it is okay if you take your time learning Japanese. Personally, I know on Instagram as well as in some of the meetings, I'm like, oh, we should try and learn Japanese as fast as possible. I'm not saying that it's bad if you take a longer time to learn Japanese. For me, it took 3 years. It varies, I would say. It varies on what your goal is for Japanese. It's okay if you're taking a long time, but you have to be in that mindset that, okay, I'm in this for the long run if you want to learn Japanese over a long period of time. For a lot of the people on the program that I do with coaching, with my pace, as well as some of the other programs that we do on Kizuno training, it's mainly going to be personal coaching. And so the personal coaching is just for your goals. It's not for necessarily the program's goals so much as it is for your timeline as well as what you want to achieve in the time that you want to achieve it. So I just wanted to get that clear, get that out of the way. I know on Instagram I say stuff like, oh, you should learn Japanese in 1 year and stuff like this. But really it's out of context most of the time. Most of the time, 1 minute is not enough time to actually tell everybody everything that I want to tell them. And even if I do tell them, normally they don't listen. So it's what it is on Instagram, it's what it is on YouTube. But this is really just for the people who are going through the program and they're trying to figure out like what they're actually supposed to be doing with their study plans as well as the process. And again, so this will be with no videos, no editing. So I have some notes here and I want to kind of get through these first. So what we're going to be starting with this month is we're actually going to do like a roadmap style learning order. And so there's a couple different stages. There's actually 3 different stages that you might come into on this roadmap. Most of you will be in stage 1. The stage 1 is like N5 to beginner. If you take the TTBJ, which is the Japanese proficiency test, it's like a JLPT Japanese exam to test your skills to see how far you are with Japanese. These are good tests to take just to kind of see like where your level is at. And then once you get past that, you can kind of see which stage of Japanese you might fall into. And so again, with your personal study plans, it might vary a little bit from the process that we have outlined here. This is just the basic process that you can kind of check off the list, be like, okay, I know I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And if it varies or if you have to change it, you can get that changed with a personal coach or you can change it yourself, depending again what your goals are with Japanese. And so with stage 1, again, stage 1 is like beginner, N5 casual fluency. And in this video, I'm just going to talk about stage 1 just because that's where the most people are at. And then we can go on with the rest of the stages in the next videos. So first with stage 1, here we have step 1, hiragana, katakana. If you haven't done this, you should have this completed. I would personally, just from what I've seen work the best with previous members, I would say just learn it once and then review it with actual words. So hiragana, katakana, and then start reviewing with the next words. And so the next words are going to be demonstrative pronouns. And so this is step 3 in stage 1. Demonstrative pronouns are things like koko, are, soko. So it's the ko, a, so. It's those types of words in Japanese. This will get you the farthest with Japanese. So if you haven't learned these yet, I recommend learning them even if they're not necessarily on your list of goals for Japanese. I still recommend doing these just because of how useful they are. Same with step number 4, interrogative pronouns. Who, what, where. So it's like dare, doko, nani. So these words are really, really useful for Japanese. If you haven't learned them yet, I have actually included a learning resource for you to actually learn them once, put them into an SRS-based study system like Anki Droid flashcards or Quizlet flashcards, I know there's some other tools that some other members use on this program, but it's okay. Whatever works, as long as it's in some sort of flashcard that you can study over a period of time. Next up, we have indefinite pronouns. So this is step 5. And this is like dareka, dokoka, dokodemo. So these things that don't really have a clear subject. So these are indefinite pronouns: somewhere, someone, many, something, these equivalents in Japanese. Next up, it's prepositions. So in, on, to, from, and this is step 6 again. These are pretty useful. Conjunctions, also very useful for building sentences in Japanese, action verbs, and all this. And I know, again, everybody's goals differ and they vary, but it's important to at least have these basics no matter what stage you're at. If you're mastering the basics, you're a master at Japanese, because a lot of Japanese is just using the basics really, really well. With the last one on this little list, this first couple list is step 9 with conditional mood tense. And we learned this early just because it is it's used quite a lot, and it will get you pretty far with Japanese. And so you can go through all of stage 1 and kind of see like, okay, these are all the things that you have to, not have to, but these are the things that would be good to know if you want a basic level of fluency in Japanese. And I think these are just good to know as well. And so there's around 60 to 80 steps in each of these stages. And so then you get into stage 2, and we'll talk more about stage 2 in the next video. But I just wanted to share with you all kind of what stage 1 looks like. What are some of the things that I want to be doing with stage 1 as well. And if you don't know what stage you're in, you can go and take the TTBJ test. Again, this is a proficiency skill test in Japanese. And if you're scoring below, I would say, if you're scoring below, I think it's a 50. If you score below 50 or 60 points, you're probably in stage 1. If you're scoring higher, you're probably going to be in stage 2 with this roadmap. Okay, and next, yes. Yeah, and then with the roadmap, you'll also have the My Study Plan. So you'll have your own study plan. And I know that each study plan will vary a lot, so it's kind of hard to talk about like, okay, you should do this with your study plan. But if there's anything I wanted to talk about, it's probably going to be immersion. And so there's a lot of theories, there's a lot of things that people say on the internet with immersion, and they're like, oh, it doesn't work, or some people are like, oh yes, it works. I will say that based off of my own experience, based off of everybody who is better than me in Japanese, there are lots of people better than me in Japanese. I'm not perfect. I don't think I'm anywhere close to perfect with Japanese. I think I'm at N1 level, which is what it is, but it's not perfect. I don't think that anybody who has reached the level that I've reached or higher with Japanese has not done immersion. And I want to say that the earlier you start immersion, the faster you'll get to your goal. And I know some of you don't have that goal of reaching Japanese fluency in 1 year or less, and that's okay, it's totally normal. But I would recommend doing immersion anyways, no matter what level you're at. And you may be like, okay, but I don't understand what I'm watching. I don't understand what I'm listening to. And honestly, it's okay. It's totally fine if you don't understand everything that you're listening to. I wanted to say that with immersion, the point with the beginnings of immersion is just so that you get the proper foundations built up in your brain, the proper patterns built up in your brain, so that you're able to understand and distinguish the words from each other when you are learning Japanese. So if you don't have an immersion environment already set up, I would highly recommend starting today. The first thing you can do is you can just start listening to Japanese, something in Japanese, as much as possible. And I know on the study plan it'll say like, oh, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. It doesn't really matter as much as those are like the minimums. but ideally you're listening to Japanese as much as you possibly can. And I know this is hard for a lot of people, especially if you are an adult, if you're working, if you have a job, if you have kids, if you have a family. It might be harder to listen to Japanese all day, every day, but try and get Japanese in at some place in your day. And ideally for the majority of your time, it should be in listening with Japanese. It doesn't have to be boring. You can listen to podcasts, you can listen to music. It doesn't matter at the beginning, as long as you're listening to something in Japanese, getting into that habit of listening to something every single day. It'll keep you in the flow of Japanese, and it'll keep you from falling out of the flow, which is the worst thing that can happen, which is when you just stop, when you take a break. Because if you take that break, it's going to turn into probably like a month-long break, and then it'll go even further, and eventually you'll be like, okay, where did all my time go? I was studying Japanese, and now it's kind of died off. So make sure you're in that immersion. Make sure that you're in that immersion environment. It helps with your habits. It helps with everything else. So it's the best thing that you can do for your Japanese today. With immersion, again, listening. It doesn't matter what you listen to something. Watching. Watch something that is fun and interesting to you. Yes, it's fun and interesting to understand what they're saying. But if you're watching something that's easy to understand, let's say like a baby or a kid's show, if you're watching one of these shows and you don't genuinely have an interest in the kids show, or if you don't think that, okay, this is actually really fun and it doesn't keep your attention, you're not going to actually get the same benefits from it. And there's studies that have been done on this. You can go and do the research yourself. Please do the research yourself if you can. But if you don't want to, it's okay. I understand that. It's completely normal. But you have to be interested in what you're watching. And so you might be at the level, at stage 1, where you're like, I'm not really sure if I understand what they're saying. And I can't really make out exactly what they're saying. I don't even know if this is helping me. It is helping you, even if you don't know it. And so you really have to trust that the system is working for you for a long enough time to see where it actually does work for you. And so with a lot of people, I see them doing immersion, I see them doing the watching, I see them doing the listening. They do it for maybe a week and then they fall off. And I ask them, why did you fall off? And they say, well, it wasn't working for me. I tried it for 1 week. I'm like, yeah, you tried it for 1 week. That's why it didn't work for you, because you spent such a short amount of time trying the system. You haven't actually had a long enough time to see that it actually does work. And so most people, they're thinking too short with Japanese. You have to think in a longer horizon. And this is something that I see with people trying to implement new methods into their study plan. They do it for 3 days. They're like, oh, it doesn't work for me, because they've only done it for 3 days, and then they just give up. And now their Japanese is staying the same, because they're not given enough time to actually do the work and actually spend the time that they need to actually do they don't spend as many days as they need to do in order to actually see the results that they want to see. And so a big part of this personal coaching program is just so that you stick with a method. You stick with immersion. You stick with watching that show that you said you were going to watch for a long enough time to see whether or not it actually is producing results for you. And so you might think like, okay, Russ, well, how long am I supposed to wait here and see if this is actually working for me? And my rule of thumb is 21 days. 21 days is about the amount of time that you want to spend doing something to see if it actually works for you, because we're assuming that maybe you have only 1 hour every day for studying Japanese. Best case scenario, 1 hour every day you have studying Japanese. And to master a skill, it takes around 21 hours. And with 21 days, it is also the same amount of time. Coincidentally, I don't know exactly if this is a coincidence or not. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in God, and I believe that this is design, but you can take it as you will. 21 days is also the amount of time that it takes to actually build a habit and keep a habit for a long amount of time. So take with that what you will. But for me, it just means that 21 days is the key rule for how long you should try a new system before you give up on it or throw it out the bin. That said, so we have listening, we have watching. Reading at the beginner level, anything counts as reading. Reading the subtitles in Japanese on the show that you're watching, that's reading. If you're reading something in Japanese, you're reading it. It doesn't matter what it is. As long as you're reading something, it kind of works. If your goal isn't reading, if it's more in speaking, that's fine. That's totally fine. I totally understand. But you still want to, I would say, maybe get at least the hiragana down. If you get at least the hiragana down, it'll be a lot easier in the long run for you to actually know how to pronounce Japanese correctly. Just because if you know how to pronounce the hiragana and katakana, then you know how to pronounce most of the Japanese language. And sure, there's accent, there's pitch, there's intonation, there's all this other stuff, all this other junk that you don't have to worry about as a foreigner. But this is just something to keep in mind when you're going through with your immersion. Okay, how long am I at? Okay, I'm at 60 minutes, so I'm just gonna make this last 4 minutes really count. I don't want to go too long on this. Sure, there's some people who do like 60-minute videos. Personally, I think for stage 1, we don't need a 60-minute video. I might come back and re-edit this, and I might make a longer version, but I think this will be fine for now. With immersion, again, with listening, watching, reading. Watching really is just listening and reading, so it doesn't really matter. But listening and reading are the two biggest things with Japanese. Really, with learning any language, there's only one way to do it. And the only one way that everybody has to do it, there's only one way. It's reviewing over time. If you're not reviewing over time, you're not learning. And that is, I don't make the rules. It's just how it is. You can do your own research again. I don't care. But it's how we actually learn, is we just review things over time. And so there's a couple different ways you can do it. One is listening to music, of course, listening to stuff in Japanese. This will help you to review the words that you already learned when you study it. Studying is another way to review it. So flashcards, SRS flashcards, studying notes over multiple days. This is reviewing over time, pretty basic stuff. Watching TV, again, same thing, reading, watching, reading, listening. It helps you to review. Then we have speaking in classes, in lectures. If you're in the program, you have the group meetings every week available to you, so that is learning. So that's another form of reviewing. And then you have writing, and so writing is more of an output. It's more of a production activity, but it is still reviewing if you are using, if you are using your own words, not new words so much as the words that you have learned. If you're using that and using the grammar and writing it out and practicing writing that, that is another form of reviewing, even though some people might be like, oh, speaking, writing, it's not really reviewing. It is reviewing in a sense, it's just not going to be perfect. And so you just have to kind of take with that what you will, but those are the main 5 ways of reviewing. And that's it. There are no other ways to review. You can do games, but really it's just reading, listening. You can do tutoring, same thing with speaking. You're just reviewing. So that's really the only ways that you can actually learn Japanese. And of course, if you really want to get into grammar, you can learn grammar that way. But we have that with the roadmap as well. Like, okay, here's the main grammar that you have to learn, and then you go on with the other stuff as well, with the other points of speech and stuff. Okay, well, I'm not gonna blabber on too much longer about this. I'll go in the next video. I'm probably going to go into, let's see, so we did immersion today. We did immersion environment. I talked about the roadmap. I talked about the TTBJ test, what that is. With the study plan and guide, again, everybody's study plan is going to be different. It's going to change just because everybody has personal goals that they want to achieve. But the basics of the immersion should stay the same. Everybody should be doing immersion. If you're not doing immersion, I don't know what you're doing. you're not going to see success on this program if you're not going to do immersion, and you're not going to see success with Japanese if you're not doing immersion. So you better be doing immersion. With making a calendar, so that's also on there. It's just so that you can see that you actually do have time for Japanese. Even if you think you don't, you probably still have time. We all have at least 5 minutes in your day where you're like sitting on the toilet. I don't care. You have the time for learning Japanese. You just have to find it, or you have to make the time for learning Japanese. So that's what the calendar is there for. I'll talk about SRS more in this next thing. I know some people don't really like it, but I'll talk about it. I'll talk about Haystags as well in the next video. But for now, this should be a good review, just an introductory video as to like what we're supposed to be doing this month. I know that this isn't for everybody, and I know that some people might feel like a little bit lost. If you feel lost, ask for help. We are here to help you. So please ask for help, and that will be about that for now. So for now, that's my message. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me personally on Instagram. I do respond, as well as email if you prefer email. WhatsApp, some people have WhatsApp. I don't know who else has WhatsApp, but we can respond there. Otherwise, that will be it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you stick around for the next video and to see the next guide with this series. Thank you.